Nation. I'm Kai, and I'm here at the Pacific Northwest District Championship with Team 9450, the Velocity Raptors. I'm here with Mark, Ryan, and Lujan to talk about their off-meta robot this year, including their cool intake and turret design, as well as their shoot on the move and some other really cool features. I'm going to hand it off to Lujan here to talk about why they made the design choices they did.
Yeah, so this year, this definitely is a really unique robot. One thing you can see is it's definitely, there's no hopper. It's definitely different from the giant hopper boxes that can intake 50 balls at a time and then dump them onto the hub. This robot can only hold 4 fuel. And the reason why we went with this type of design was because we really wanted to prioritize throughput and not the hopper capacity, since there's so much fuel on the field that we decided the field's going to be our hopper instead. So we really prioritize a quick throughput system that can intake as many balls as it can and shoot them rapid fire into the hub. I will hand off to Mark here to talk about our intake.
Before we get to our next segment, we'd like to thank the following. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by FIRST alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com. As you're getting ready for the competition season, think AndyMark as your one-stop shop for all your team needs. AndyMark's Launcher in a Box is a configurable solution that so many teams are finding success with for the rebuilt season. Also available at AndyMark.com, the AMPD AndyMark power distribution board that provides 24 40-amp independently fused output channels for safe, reliable power distribution. That's AndyMark.com.
So our intake this year is very unusual from what a lot of other teams have been using. Most teams have a sort of slap down or 4-bar intake that intakes using rollers over the bumper. But our intake intakes using vectoring wheels through the bumper, through this bumper gap that's a little bit wider than a singular fuel.
Is there a reason why your team decided to opt for the 3-wheel intake?
So what we thought was all the vectoring should be done outside of the robot so that there would be no jams inside of the robot for us to deal with. And if it jams on the outside, all we have to do is raise our intake drive out and drive back in, which would then just reset the intaking process and make it so that the balls don't jam again. This is intake that pivots on this pivot right here, driven by an X60 through an 8-tooth to a 72 to an 18 to another 72. It has been pretty strong and pretty fast after we've added this absolute encoder, which allows us to tune our PID very well, very precisely, which means that the intake can deploy and retract in under half a second. As for the rollers, we have a set of green AndyMark compliant wheels in the center here to act as regular wheels since the bumper gap is already behind them, and Rev 3-inch wheels that will vector along the bumper gap into the actual frame of the robot when they touch the green wheels. These are driven through a connection of belts that are powered by these 2 Kraken X60s, the second one of which we added after our week 3 competition when we were looking at how to make our intake even faster. After the balls will pass through the intake, they will get kicked up by this bar of sushi rollers right here, and then passed onto this polycarb ramp, which we reinforced with 1/8-inch aluminum bars so that it wouldn't bend nearly as much. They are also then grabbed by more wheels and then passed into our transfer system. Our transfer system is 100% powered by belts. It is very different from most of the spindexers or roller beds you would see this season. It always maintains 2 points of contact on the robot by having belts being on both the top and the bottom.
Is there a reason why your team decided that 2 points of contact was better than 1?
The thing is that originally our first transfer actually had a few spots in it where it would only have 1 point of contact, especially on the release of the ball into the shooter. But what we found that did to our balls was it put a spin on them, which was really bad because that increases our shooter variance and therefore decreases our accuracy. So what we did here was the transfer will now shoot our balls directly up into the shooter, which will minimize ball variance and improve our accuracy. And now I will hand off to Wishin to talk about our pass-through turret and shooter.
Yeah, so start of the season, actually before the season, we kind of had a hunch that this game will be a shooter game. And for months, we were like, no turret, we're not doing a turret. We don't have the capacity, we don't have the resources, we don't have the knowledge of the turret. 10 minutes after the kickoff video dropped, we were like, I think we might have to do a turret. So our turret here has about 320 degrees of motion here. And it's driven by this tracking motor here up to this lantern gear here that's from the Thrifty Bot. The really nice thing about these Thrifty Bot lantern gears is that we realized that, one of the important things about a turret is minimizing that backlash and that swappage in those gears. The 30 bot lantern gears has almost virtually no backlash and no swappage, so that our turret can rotate exactly where it needs to, really accurately. Another unique thing about a turret is a lot of teams will opt in to go for like an X contact bearing from West Coast Products. Because this was kind of our first year doing a turret, we didn't really know much about it. Really early in the season, we bought a $20 Lazy Susan bearing from Amazon. We got it the next day and we tested it out, kind of toyed around the idea of how a turret really works. We realized that it actually works really well. So up to this point, we actually still run the $20 Amazon Lazy Susan bearings, so we didn't have to deal with the X contact bearings. The wiring, so one of the tough things about turrets that we knew was going to be the wiring. The wiring, we use a WCP bi-directional drag chain. It goes through this spool here, and as the turret rotates around, it's on a linear slide that can move back and forth that's connected by this constant force spring. Are they back and forth?
Is there a reason why your team opted for this winter slide, or?
We kind of looked at past designs for how to wire our turret, and we thought about going more like a perpendicular. We realized that we actually didn't have the spacing to go perpendicular to the robot, so we had to go parallel. And we realized that if we kind of just put it in line with where our transfer was, we can easily slap on some linear slides and then have our bi-directional drag chain move along with it. And we realized that it works really well and gives us almost a 360 degree of range.
Perfect.
Moving on to our shooter now. So our shooter, obviously we really prioritize having accuracy and consistency and making sure this shooter can keep up with our throughput and BPS. Our shooter has a actuated hood with about 25 degrees of range, powered by this Kraken here, and we have a with these metal racks so that it can there won't be wear. Our first and third event we use plastic racks, and we realized that we're using it so much that it wears down really quickly, so we opted in to switch to metal gears or metal racks. Another thing that was really important was making sure we have consistent compression all along our hood, so you can see no matter where the hood is, there's always the same level of compression on the hood, so that the ball, when we shoot the ball, it will be really consistent. Our shooter is powered by these two X60s on the sides here. And then we have an abduction, because another thing we prioritized was making sure we can have those full court shots from the very end of the fields. So we have an abduction here so that we can speed up our shooter as quick as possible, so that we can fire those really far shots. Obviously, none of this would be possible because having a turret is obviously mechanically really difficult, but also it's really difficult on the software side, and making sure we have that shoot on the move capability, because we're intaking so many balls, making sure that we have somewhere for those balls to be fired at, whether it be the hub or referring it to our side, is really important. So I'll be handing off to Ryan here to talk more about that.
Yeah, so there are many things that we need to do software-wise that we just haven't done before. One of them is the fact that for our turret, we decided to not do a standard motion magic control system. we decided to go with position velocity, which is essentially at this point in time, I want to be at this position going this fast. And using coordinate frames of getting the turret's angle and velocity with respect to robot and to field, we were able to factor in the robot's angular velocity as well. Another thing about this is our shoot on the move, which we apply the robot's current velocity and rotation to where we're trying to shoot. So instead of at a point in time we're trying to just score at the hub, we're trying to score away from the hub, which would then make the ball go in based off the time of flight that's in the air, which we calculate multiple different times, and we get the average of it to get a very specific and precise measurement. And so due to the fact that obviously this robot is always moving, it's always intake, it's always firing, we know that we need to be very precise on where the robot thinks it is, because all the calculations are based off that. If a single one of those is wrong, we're not making a shot. And so if you look down at each swerve pod, we have a limelight pointed out at a 45-degree angle. Due to this, we have a 8-degree dead zone between each limelight, and that allows us to essentially always be seeing a tag, which due to our vision subsystem, which we custom made, we use Limelight's Megatag 1 and Megatag 2 for a very precise pose calculation.
Is there a reason why your team decided to land on pointing your limelights on each swerve? Because that's not something I see from a lot of teams, and I think that's a really cool and innovative idea.
Yeah, so the standard that you would normally see is a camera or a limelight on the turret, which will just always face the hub because it can always see the tags there. We decided that that was just unneeded code complexity, because if we know where the limelights are in respect to our robot center, then we can calculate where the robot is relative to limelight, and then the turret to the robot center. And so as long as the robot knows where it is, then the turret can know where it is. And so due to our very accurate vision system, we haven't had many issues with turret.
Perfect. Thank you, 9450, for taking the time to speak with us. Fun Crew, wish 9450 the best of luck here at the Pacific Northwest District Championship, and we'll see you next time on Behind the Bumpers.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell to stay up to date on future fun videos. As you're getting ready for the competition season, think AnyMark as your one-stop shop for all your team needs. AnyMark's Launcher in a Box is a configurable solution that so many teams are finding success with for the rebuilt season. Also available at anymark.com, the AMPD AnyMark power distribution board that provides 24 40-amp independently fused output channels for safe, reliable power distribution. That's anymark.com. It isn't too late to order competition apparel for your team at FRC Tees. Founded by First alumni and offering a free 14-day turnaround with expedited options available, go to frctees.com to see why hundreds of teams are making FRC Tees their first choice for their apparel needs. That's frctees.com.